a better backseat driver than most people are front seat drivers. Adam Carolla.
Yeah, get it on. Got to get it on. The church is going to mandate get it on. Anthony Michael Hall in studio. So much to talk about with you, my friend.
Good to see you again, man. It's been years.
Yeah. Latest project is called Trigger Warning. Just pull my glasses off. And that'll be out on Netflix June 21st. And we'll get into that as well. So I grew up down the street from the Ringwald family.
Did you?
You don't know that story.
I don't.
I'm a huge John Hughes fan. I don't feel... I hate when people go, he doesn't get his due because he's done so many great films, but... Yeah. Maybe comedically he doesn't get his due or something. A Weird Science is like one of the funniest movies ever made.
Thanks,
I love that movie so much.
Appreciate that.
Bill Paxton is Chet.
Guy. Yeah.
Tour de force, right?
He was. Such a great guy, too. He was really a loved guy. A lot of fun. And he loved the process, Bill. He loved making movies, man. He was always excited, you know.
Yeah, he's when did he pass? 3 or 4 years ago? I can't tell with COVID anymore.
It's like COVID brain. Yeah, we miss him, man. I loved him. He was a good friend. He really was.
I also working on Reacher with my dear friend Nick Santora as the writer.
You know, Nick, great guy.
Yeah. Great, right?
He really is. He gave me this great opportunity. We spoke last summer. We started the season last summer before the strike. And
into the mic a little bit.
Let me lean in there, Adam.
Thank you.
No, I met Nick last summer, and I learned about his background. It was a very interesting trajectory. He was a lawyer, and then he wrote a spec script, and he wound up doing an episode of Sopranos, and he was off to the races. He's created about 8 or 9 shows. He's just a fantastic guy. It was an honor to work for him, and Amazon, too.
Yeah, so good on you, as they say. So you start off in the Boston area, and you start off as acting young, right?
I started in 1976, man. I did a play with Steve Allen when I was 8 years old. I was a little kid. And, to be very honest, Adam, it was like a hobby that kind of spun into a career. With Steve Allen. Yeah, I did a play with Steve Allen.
Tonight Show host, like the was he the pre-Carson
he was.
Late night guy?
Yeah, I think he was. He created the Tonight Show and then handed it over to Jack Parr, but he was a great guy. So I started many years ago. Yeah.
And in the play, you were how old?
I'm 8 years old. I was a pup. Yeah.
And you were playing what role?
I played Steve. It was a play about his life during the Depression. And it was a very kind of Eugene O'Neill family drama. It was a summer stock gig. It was a great experience. So that's when I started. And then after I did commercials and all that other stuff until I started making movies in my teens.
So when did the John Hughes pairing come along?
Well, I had auditioned for Maddie Simmons and Harold Ramis, the great Harold Ramis, at Warner Brothers in New York. And I came to their attention. I got Vacation, 1982, when I was a kid. I was 14.
I forgot about Vacation.
Yeah.
So Vacation was sort of the first...
Yeah, first big project that I did. And I was off to the races working with Chevy and John Candy and Imogene Coca, so many great people.
Does 16 Candles then comes shortly?
Comes after that, yeah. And I didn't meet John on Vacation. Hughes, right.
So did Hughes wrote it but didn't direct it?
Correct. Correct. And as you know, in Hollywood, the writers are not often invited to the set. We got it. We got the 12 rewrites. Thanks a lot. We'll call you for the screen.
Listen, not only not invited to the set, but I was thinking about the other day, I did a sitcom pilot for NBC, and when you were done with the table read or the run-through or whatever it is, they would all break off into a room for writer's notes,
Right.
And I would go, oh, where are we doing the writer's notes? And they go, they don't want you in there. And I'd be like, well, I created the show. Shouldn't I be in on that one? And it's like, yeah, but it's kind of sensitive. They don't want to give notes with you standing there. So they'll just do it, and then you can go back to the office and wait for the notes to come in.
Ingrates, huh?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I don't feel like it helps the process. You should probably have the creator of the show and the star of the show in the meeting where you're giving notes on the run-through.
Yeah.
But they were so committed to not having the writer, because it's inevitable that the writer's going to have notes on the set.
Sure.
It has to.
Sure.
So at some point, I guess Hughes got enough juice to just do them both, right?
Correct. But I think it's so funny you mentioned that, because on Vacation, I remember we were not allowed to see dailies. This is the era of dailies, so you have to wait for the film to come back from the lab. And I remember just thinking, that was fine. And all these years later, I've never looked back. When I'm doing something, I don't want to look at the monitor. I don't want to look at playback. It's just, you get too self-involved. You start pulling faces,
So, and Hughes, like Paxton, died early. maybe around the same age. Even you can look up Chris. I think they were both in their early or mid or 50s or something like that.
I think John was about 60, too young. I mean, I'm 56 now, so it's
it used to be old when you were playing Steve Allen's alter ego at age 8. Then anyone in 60 was like, oh, they had a good run. Good enough.
Yeah. John died at age 59. Bill at 61.
Gotcha.
All right,
there you go.
Now that's our age, and that's too young. I now announce.
Yeah, I agree.
Too young. Yeah, Paxton. Just as Chet, the older brother.
Great guy.
Just
so funny.
And Hughes would do stuff that was almost vaudevillian, comedically. The music and the physical stuff, the conk on the head with the shotgun and all that kind of, even kind of jokes were almost from cartoons. Like when he opened the cupboard and he's like, "Hi, Nana. Hi, Papa." And then
they're frozen.
He shuts it, takes like 2 steps and then stops. That's very like Bugs Bunny almost.
Great point. No, absolutely. What was so cool about him is that he was so talented at it. The writing, directing was always there, but he was very collaborative, man. I think that was one of his great talents. Just letting people try stuff. We would always do it 2 or 3 takes for him, and then we'd just, have fun and do something different.
And a young Robert Downey Jr.
Yes, still owes me money then. No, we had a good time working for Mr. Hughes. Yeah, but we met on Weird Science back in the day on the lot right down the street here, Universal.
That's such a funny movie, and that scene where you go out to the blues club and get drunk with the black blues musicians and drive the Cadillac. I grew up out here, so I'm like, oh, that's right by Vince's gym on Ventura Boulevard. Like he's going right down Ventura Boulevard, like when you're driving like a maniac. Yeah. That must have been right here.
It was a trip. Yeah, we were in the Valley, also on the Strip, I remember. Yeah. Oh, it was a lot of fun, man. It really was. We shot in Chicago, and then we transitioned back to L.A., and we finished on the lot of Universal.
That's how they would do it. When I was in the film as a stand-in for lighting, Judgment Night, they shot the exteriors in Chicago and then came here.
Right.
And I got the stand-in gig.
Nice.
Sweet. That's a sweet job.
Not a bad gig, right?
You stand there.
Right.
You literally just stand there. Yeah. And then when they're ready to actually do it, they go, all right, now you can leave. Yeah. You always want a job where when the work starts, they go eat. Get out of here. That's how I spent my high school days. All right, now we're going to study. All right, Carolla, get out of here. We're doing work now.
That's funny. But they have a chair on the set. It's a good gig. I agree. Listen, I tell people when they ask me how they break into business, I say, go work on a film or TV show, man. You'll on-the-job training, you'll learn in real time.
Oh, and at some point, if you're around long enough, one of the stand-ins got to roll as a cop. Because at some point, they're like, where's the guy who's playing the cop? He didn't show up. Or what size are you?
Right.
Just put the cop
uniform on.
But he gets an
upgrade. There you go.
Yeah, just walk in. And all you have to do is, you just have to say what's going on here. That's all. Just walk in.
Right.
You'll do it. No one knows the better.
Right.
Anyway, so you start off, I got Molly Ringwald living up at the Ringwalds up the street for me.
Wow.
In North Hollywood, California on Hartsook Street.
Copy.
Living with the sister, Beth, the older sister, and then they had a younger brother who passed away very tragically at a very young age.
Didn't know that.
And then they had the other brother, Kelly, who just wanted nothing to do with show business.
Interesting.
Which is always weird because everyone always talks about nurture, but I really think it's nature the older I get.
Interesting.
Because the dad, Bob, who's blind and played the piano.
Sure. Jazz musician, yeah.
Jazz musician, pushed everyone to get into show business. And it worked on like 2.5 of the 4.
Got
but some just didn't want anything to do with it. Now, do you feel? Now, then a lot of people feel like, oh, I had a stage mom and I got pushed into this, and now I'm resentful. Do you have any of that?
No, I had a great Italian, Irish, tough Catholic mom. She kept me in line, But to be very honest, she didn't follow me around with a brush. It was none of that, I just had I had a work ethic at a very young age, and I think also being raised in New York City, that was like my great teacher, seeing what was possible. So it was like it was like a hobby that spun into a career. As I said, I did commercials. I did that play as a little kid. But after school, I'd go to my auditions, man, and hop on a bus or a train in the city and just go knock out on it. Yeah. I mean, I was from a very young age.
At like
it was
9
weird.
years old?
Yeah, it was weird. I was a very...
There's a lot of autonomy back then. Kids just left. and the parents liked it that way, by the way.
Oh, they'll be back.
Like, I'd be like, I'd leave and I'd be gone, for 9 hours during the summer, and then like some point someone would go, "What if he's abducted?" My mom would go, "Even better." Never. He'll never come
Less work
home.
for me.
That'll be it. Imagine if this thing just kept going. He'd probably have a better life in Mexico
Because
anyway.
back in the day, playtime was just get the hell out of the house after school. Just leave. Just go outside, hit the park, whatever.
The weirdest thing ever, if you're of a certain age, you got yelled at to take it outside 30 times a week. Like whatever you were doing inside, they go, come on, take that outside. Take that outside. You could be sitting and watching TV. Then take it out. Get an extension cord. Move the sofa. It's cold, Mom. Take it outside.
That's so funny.
Any activity was always told, go outside.
Right. Go out and play was any number of things. Yeah.
Yeah. So you were just taking the train, taking the bus, being, very autonomous and very sort of liberating, but also could be a little scary because everyone's taller than you, on the train.
That too. Yeah. I just think the city exposed me to so much. You know how it is. If you're in Manhattan, you see it all, man.
Have you ever had what would be called a regular job?
No.
Never.
No. Thank God.
I mean, not even a like weird bartending something summer stock somewhere.
No. Well, I am half
bartending.
Irish, so I had that old joke, right? We don't make good lawyers because we never pass the bar in the morning. That's terrible. No, but you know what? Honestly, I thank God for that. I started out at a very young age, so I'm very fortunate. Yeah.
God, I'm trying to think of the number of people who've just never had a day job, which is. I know it's good. It's also can be bad. You should experience the gravity of life so you're not mean to the waiters or something. But I think you took your work ethic and you brought it to acting.
I did. It was like my sport. I just kept chipping away at it. That was actually one of my father's sayings growing up. Just keep chipping away. Stay accessible. Keep going. So thank God I did.
And was there a time when you were, I know where it's like now you get typecasted, you're the sort of John Hughes kid, you want to go on and do other work.
Yeah.
You have to turn down stuff that's more of the typecasting.
Yeah, I think the term individuation, I think by the time I was 18, I'd done the 3 John Hughes films, and it was an incredible, auspicious start. I was really grateful to him, and then I moved on. I wanted to do other stuff. I did Out of Bounds for Columbia. I did SNL that same year, even though that was
I heard you're really
rough
close
year.
to getting the Full Metal Jacket role, starring in Matthew
That came
Modine's
up.
role.
Yeah, I didn't want it making the film, but it was a very interesting, kind of long, drawn-out negotiation with Mr. Kubrick, and it was incredible, which included a trip up to Nicholson's house. Kelly LeBrock took me up to Jack's house to discuss Stanley. I mean, it was like talking about when I was 17, it was a very good year. It was just, as Frank said, it was amazing. So, I mean, I had great experiences. And even though I didn't get to ultimately make the film, it was an incredible opportunity, even just speaking to Kubrick. Pretty amazing.
Yeah, well, we miss Gunny, the sergeant.
Yeah. Private Powell.
Yeah. Well, the great, the...
Lee Ermey, right?
Arlie.
Yeah.
Arlie
Ermey.
Ermey, yeah.
Ermey. He's been in here before he passed, obviously. Great guy, fun guy, sort of real deal guy.
Right.
And the story's great because he was going to be an advisor on the film. I don't know if you know this story.
I did read this,
and
right.
at some point, they just went, let this guy do it.
Yeah, because he was a Marine.
Yeah, he is that guy. Yeah. And the first half of that film is as good as any first half of any film
Agreed.
ever.
The boot camp portion, yeah. He was incredible. Jumped off the screen. I did read that story about him.
So for you are doing the John Hughes stuff, then you want to get into more serious stuff. And do you write?
I do. I have a couple projects that I've written, something I want to make that's very personal to me. It's interesting. I didn't try to avoid comedy. I just, having not had great success on SNL, Adam, I never fell into the Sandler clique or the Will Ferrell clique or.
Well, you were on SNL,
but
when
I
you
love
were
all these guys.
21 or
I was 17, man.
Oh,
yeah. I was
a
wee lad.
Listen, 17. How could you even come close to a comedic voice at that age? Now you had head start.
Yeah.
But I mean, you had to feel like there should be a thing with SNL like we have with presidents. You know what I mean? Like you have to be older than 35 because you can't do the job. if you're 28. You know what I mean? Because you just don't have the experience, the breadth, the width, the life. You know what I mean? It's like,
no, listen,
I don't know how you could do SNL in your. I couldn't have done it before I was 30.
Right.
Like, I wouldn't have had anything to say when I was 23.
No, I think that's valid. I mean, because growing up, my heroes were like George Carlin, Richard Pryor. I love stand-ups, and I later discovered Lenny. I mean, I loved him, and I watched all the late-night shows like Jimmy, your friend. I mean, I loved Letterman growing up. I loved comics, you know. I never did that, but... And I'll tell you, it's not 30 Rock behind the scenes. It's very competitive.
Oh,
and as
yeah.
you know, comics are very competitive. Comedic writers can be just as much. And it's a very intense atmosphere. It's rock and roll theater all rolled into one, man. And it's a 6-day-a-week gig, as you know, Adam. I mean, it's like you're hammering. You're going from Monday to Wednesdays, all writing around the clock. And then people don't realize you rehearse the show, man. People that do SNL, they're there at 10, 11 in the morning till 11 o'clock at night. And you're doing it around the clock, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday all day. And then you do the show twice. So by the time you do it live, man, you're like, shit, this has been some week. It's incredible. It's really a rush.
SNL came after Weird Science?
It did, yeah.
And was there a thought, and were there voices in your camp that said, like, no, don't do this, do Weird Science Part 2, or keep going with John Hughes, or this is going to, this could get you into trouble?
You know what? Because a couple of years before, I'm literally at home, living in my mother's apartment with my parents, and I'm watching Eddie on SNL like 2 years before. So suddenly I get asked to do it, and to be very honest, Adam, because Lorne called, and his producer, Leila Nabulsi, called, and I was just shocked. I remember after committing and agreeing to do it, I was like shitting my pants. I was walking around the city going, oh my God, I can't believe I want to be on SNL in the fall.
Right.
Did I commit to that? Because here I am. I'm like reading Cream magazine, listening to Van Halen in my room, and all of a sudden.
Yeah.
It was a great experience, and I'll always tip my hat to Lorne. He was incredible what he's created,
So you were still the youngest member of all time on SNL. How were you accepted by the rest of the cast?
I think, everybody was pretty cool, some more than others. And I think, like I said, I'm sure Adam can attest to this. Comics can be very competitive, man, and they can be very supportive, and there's a sort of fraternal vibe too, but also they can be very competitive. So I found it to be a very competitive atmosphere, but in a good way, So that's what I mean. It wasn't like 30 Rock. It was a little more intense than that, but it was a lot of fun. I mean, here we are, we're all goofing off at 30 Rock, and we have cubicles, and, we're being paired off with these writers, and
your mom's dropping you off in the morning. Mom, be done doing coke about 10 p.m. if you could come by.
You know what? Actually, this is really fun. I have a very funny story. I actually used to go to this place called P.J. Clark's, and one night I hit it off, and I'm hanging out with Harry Nilsson, the late, great Harry Nilsson.
Sure.
And I literally had snuck
Cats
out of
in
the
the
house.
Cradle, Harry Nilsson? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Lime in the coconut? Yeah.
Yeah.
So long story short, I'm drinking with Harry Nilsson all night, and at a certain point, it's about 3 a.m., and Harry sees me get up to leave. He goes, Mike, where are you going? I go, Harry, I got to go to school, man. I got to get out of here.
Yeah, he was a funky dude, right?
Yeah, he was friends with John Lennon. He was a great guy, man. Bon vivant, man. He was a great guy.
And so SNL, now, how did you part ways with SNL?
Well, this is a funny kind of footnote. And it was brought to my attention. Somebody else was recounting this recently. The last episode, there actually was a sketch where the cast accidentally got caught on fire on one of the sets, and the only people to make it out were Nora Dunn and John Lovitz, because Lovitz was the breakout that year.
Right.
So I think that kind of said it all. I think that was that was my cue that I wouldn't be asked back in 86.
Were you 2 seasons or 1?
I just did 1.
Who was in your cast besides Nora and Lovitz?
Downey, Dennis Miller.
Oh, Downey. I forgot about that. Oh,
Nora
Miller.
Dunn, Denitra Vance, Terry Sweeney. Who else? Randy
Joan
Cusack. Thank you.
Randy Quaid.
Randy Quaid. Thank you. My middle-aged brain here.
Oh, yeah. No, I get it.
Yeah, a bunch of people. Man.
Did Brat Pack. The Sinatra thing got me going in the wrong direction. But Brat Pack, there's a doc coming out, Brat Pack doc,
Right.
I think, coming out, where you must have ran in some of those circles, but was there ever an opportunity, or did you care to be part of that group?
To be honest, I wasn't included in that article all those years ago, and to be honest, also I was a little bit younger than all those guys. Like when we did the Breakfast Club, for example. I mean, Emilio and Judd, I think, were in their 30s then. No, they were like in their mid-20s, but they would go out and have a beer at night, and I'd be doing homework in my room. It was kind of funny.
I think Molly
I didn't really run with that crowd.
Molly must be 55, 56.
Well, in 80, so they're wondering why Molly or Anthony weren't in St. Elmo's fire, right? Mm-hmm. And the reason being is because they were both still 17 in 1985. So in 1985, Anthony and Molly were 17. Emilio's 23. Rob Lowe's 21. Andrew McCarthy's 23. Demi Moore's 23. Ali Sheedy's 23. So it's a pretty big age gap for
that's a big
of your time,
4 or 5 years when you're that age,
Right.
Especially if you try to have sex with them.
Legally, yes.
I always remember I'm from North Hollywood. Everything was just stucco and cinder block and asphalt, and I'd watch movies like St. Elmo's Fire, and there'd be bricks and ivy on the building and changing of the seasons and leaves, and grass and all this architecture and stuff and weather and,
You're like,
and everything.
The East Coast is out there somewhere.
What is going on at these schools with these people? And that was
It's a fun time, man. I mean, like I said, I honestly was a little younger than that crowd, and I wasn't in that article. And honestly, the Rat Pack's a lot cooler anyway. But I was asked by Mr. McCarthy to be a part of that new doc series, and I'm just someone who's always kind of forward-thinking. Yeah, he's a great guy, very nice guy.
Yeah. So, were you part of it or not?
I wasn't, just because I'm someone who opts to look forward and keep moving forward.
Not do the retrospective on.
Well,
whatever.
I've been doing it for decades anyway, just because I'm happy to discuss Hughes and where I started, and I wouldn't be here without John. So,
yeah, I think it's important to have the kind of shark swimming forward mentality because the business is very. It'll turn over fast and sort of push you out of it, and there's a kind of element of your train that's just speeding down tracks, and you have to get in front of the train, which is you, and throw track out because everything's 18 months to 2 years away.
Yeah, no, I know.
So
what
it's
you
a
mean.
bunch of lead time, and you can just go away for a year and you'll never be heard of again. Like or no one, the phone will stop ringing.
No, that's the thing. It's a tough business, man. It eats people up, and certainly a lot of child actors have gone through hell. But I was very fortunate. I had a very strong foundation with my parents, my upbringing, my personal faith. A lot of things factored in. And I think at a certain point, you just have to decide to become unstoppable for yourself. You're only competing with yourself, I think, in life. Yeah. So I just kept at it, man. Just kept taking my father's advice, chipping away,
Did you have any big moments where, you turned 18, you got the money freed up that was being put in an account, and you're going to buy yourself a Ferrari or a condo or something? Did you have one of those sort of moments? Or more than one of those moments?
I was the type of kid, like when I would get a new stereo or, I'd play a little guitar. I'd go to Manny's in Midtown. I mean, I didn't really spend a lot of money, I really didn't. As I got older, I am a car guy like you. I mean, I love cars, and I do have a couple properties after all these years, But yeah, I've never been too money fixated, But I'm grateful for it. And of course, it was fun to have access and to be able to eat out and do nice things as a kid,
Did you have a lot of women throwing themselves at you? Because you were so recognizable at such a young age.
Yeah, well, it's a dicey question when you're married with a child. But what I can say, Adam, is I had a good time. I had a lot of fun. I had fun. I had a good time.
Yeah.
Youth is
or you
wasted
can
on
go
the young.
the Gene Simmons route, which is I was a bad boy and I shouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
But he did.
So you speak a lot about your father. This is technically your stepfather, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And so he was a manager. I read that he helped discover Sandra Bullock, John Leguizamo, Mike Epps.
Yeah, my stepfather, Tom Chestero, he was a great guy. He passed, sadly, about 6 years ago at brain cancer. But he adopted me when he married my mother, and they had my sister Mary, who's an incredible artist and businesswoman. So, yeah, my stepfather was really there for me. He adopted me, really became my father in my life, And I grew up without my biological. I only met him a couple times later in my 20s, so.
Well, I'll ask you the question I normally reserve for black athletes. Did your dad circle back your biological dad? Because at some point, he sees what you're up to, right? And now he's in a weird position because on one hand, he may be very sincere about mending this rift with his biological son. On the other hand, maybe he wants to borrow a couple of bucks. I don't know. But was there that
question? You know
situation?
What I learned? Yeah, it's a great question, Adam. I found this out from my mother probably in my late teens. I wound up asking her about this. And I think at one point when I was a little kid, I was in grade school, probably 9, 10, 11 years old. And he wanted to come meet me in the city, and my mother kind of, squashed it. Because I think at that point, too much time had gone by. She was concerned about it messing with my head, essentially. Mm-hmm. But in fairness, I have to say, to answer your question, it's something that I thought about over the years before I lost my father to, my biological father, Larry Hall, to cancer too in 2009. But I didn't really know the guy. But it was something that I would ruminate on. I would be thinking about, wow, this guy's had to watch me on TV for a couple decades here. It must be weird for him, difficult. But c'est la vie. That's how it was meant to be, I guess. Sometimes people's absence is a gift, maybe.
Oh, yeah, I think there's, if you go to the extreme, so you go, if the guy is a raging alcoholic who's physically abusive, then being absent is a gift. If they're super negative. And then there's sort of all the shades, in between that. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes, like, my dad never left, but he wasn't that into his kids, which in a weird way is worse because you just see him on the sofa every day, not took off with his secretary and, living in Maui.
Right.
But your dad, your biological dad, did he turn out to be, was he a successful person?
He was a mechanic. He owned an auto body shop, which when I met him years later in my early 20s, I went to his house with my uncle. I was actually 22 at the time. And I just walked into his house and introduced myself and took he and his wife and a stepbrother and stepsister that I just found out about.
Wow.
Took them all to dinner, and it was a weird thing, But yeah, he was a car guy. And then I learned that he had an auto body shop, and it was the initials of his kids. And MBA was Michael, Bobby, and Andrea. So it was a strange thing, man, to meet your father when you're 22, But yeah, nonetheless, that's how it played out. Yeah.
Did you see things in him where you went like, oh, that's where I got that?
It was interesting you said that because I remember us sitting on the floor of his living room that day, and it was literally like 10 minutes of meeting him, and we were just kind of slouching on the floor, sitting there cross-legged, and I looked over, and it was just a moment of, oh shit, that's like, I'm him. Physically, I could see there's kind of mirroring some physicality in a weird way. I didn't bring it to his attention, but I was just like, oh shit, that is my dad. I could tell. Like,
it is weird.
He was also more nervous than I was, I think, at the time.
Yeah. I could see that.
It's difficult for him,
It's weird when you start picking up the traits of family members.
Right.
I notice every time I call my dad, he goes, hello. And then at some point I started doing it, but I don't like it. But I realized I must have got it from somewhere.
Yeah.
I didn't used to do it before.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
I think that
DNA, man.
The thing that pissed my sister off the most, as I told her once, you kind of remind me of Mom. She was like, what the?
You got mad? Wow.
That was an insult.
Got it.
It's not a good sign if you're the mom.
I hope the Carollas aren't listening today.
No, they're not.
They're not.
You're good. Not fans. So, so what are we talking about? We're talking about 40. Oh, no, we're not talking about 40 years. We're talking about 45 years.
Yeah.
Pretty much just uninterrupted work.
I've been chipping away at it, I've never been a good celebrity, I have to admit. I like disappearing into my work, but I'm grateful for the run. I've amassed over 100 credits, and just look. A lot of people, I think, present this image that it's all been planned out and thought out, and it's a hustle, man. So I'm grateful, and I thank God for just even having a creative life and just enduring it this long. I really do mean it.
It was funny. We start off by talking about Nick Santora. You have the exact same attitude, sound, and rhythm as he has when he speaks.
Is that right?
I speak to Nick a lot. I've spoken to Nick a lot, and when I close my eyes and you talk, that is Santora.
Wow.
Now maybe
great.
I don't know if he was here last time he got too drunk or something on Mangria. I can't remember. So he would sound different. But
I just met him for the first time because he came to set on one of our last days of production. But he's got a great life. He lives in Pennsylvania with his family, and unique situation. He oversees 2 shows. He has FUBAR and Reacher, but he stays in Pennsylvania. So there's a guy on the set who literally is his eyes and ears. He walks around with an iPad, and he's filming us as we're doing our rehearsals. But he's just such a great guy and such a humble guy. And, he gave me a great opportunity with this. I loved working on Reacher. Alan Richardson's a good guy. He's a stand-up guy. Takes it very seriously. Top-notch Canadian crew. They really were fantastic to work with. And, it was a real blessing, man. We just shot the whole season. I'm not allowed to talk about it, but it's going to be kick-ass.
When's it coming out?
You know what? The first 2 seasons, I believe, aired in December, right on the heels of Jack Ryan. And what I heard, because of the strike, Adam, I think they're going to offset it by a quarter. So it'll be 2025, maybe in that first 3 or 4 months.
Called me and he said, "Do you think Anthony Michael Hall would be right for this role?" And I said, "I don't know." And he said, "Well, he sounds like me when he talks." And I said, "Oh, okay." Well,
Voice
we
twins.
sound like
Shot.
that's funny, man. I love it.
I'm telling you,
I love it. I'm going to call him and tell him this.
I hear it.
The only gift I have is being able to say that guy sounds like that guy.
Gotcha.
That's
Yeah.
really my only gift is saying Ted Cruz sounds like Mr. Haney from Green Acres. That's you've heard we've
old
done
enough
it
to
before,
appreciate
right?
that reference.
Yes, yeah, but
We've done it.
I just know what people sound like, and
Appreciate
you
it,
and
man.
Santora.
Had only you known on set, you could have left some voicemails to Santora's guy.
Well,
as
I'm
Santora.
Italian-Irish. I'm a McGinney, so I'm right there.
Trigger warning also with Jessica Alba. Man, she's a bit of all right.
I'd say so.
How was that
Pardon me.
working with Jessica?
She's a tough cookie. She's a smart lady. Really takes it seriously. She was a great, producer to work with. She was very hands-on. She has a big history with the action stuff. She having done those Robert Rodriguez films and Dark Angel, so she really knows her stuff. So I enjoyed working with her on screen as an actor.
She's quite the entrepreneur too, isn't she?
Yeah, she started the Honest Company, and now she just started a production company. So, but it was interesting. We had a great team of women. We had a female cinematographer, Zoe White, and Molly Soria, our filmmaker, was really talented. She was nominated for a foreign Oscar for a film she made called Marlena the Murder in 4 Acts. And it's like her Kill Bill. It was an incredible film. I'd recommend it to you guys.
What
So
do you-
really great group of people. And then Thunder Road did John Wick films.
What are you with? Like for me, I love the John Hughes stuff, and planes, trains, and automobiles. Got to watch that every Thanksgiving or
Great
Christmas,
one.
and
Yeah.
it's just there's so much good stuff there. And Weird Science, like I said, I've probably seen 130 times. But what's in your watch list? Like what comedies do you, or non? Like what films, since you've been there, done that, worked with everyone, seen it all?
Yeah.
What do you watch where you go like, oh man, that's really good, or really funny?
Fortunately, like the guy I mentioned earlier, Harold Ramos, is incredible. Growing up, I loved Stripes and Meatballs and the Ivan Reitman stuff, Animal House stuff that we grew up, I'm sure,
Yeah.
watching the same films. So that stuff made a big impression on me. As I mentioned, Eddie, I loved Eddie as a kid. I thought he was great. Film-wise, I don't know. I've always loved the Scorsese stuff, not necessarily comedy, but that stuff that, growing up in New York, I related to and watched with my father, all the Scorsese films.
There's
are
tons
great.
of comedy in Scorsese
Yeah.
films that
Yeah.
you sort of forget about, like the really funny comedic scenes, like in Raging Bull when he's telling Pesci to punch him, and he's like, "I'm not going to punch you, you're my brother." And then by the end of the scene, he's so pissed at him, he's
like,
trying
wrap
to
it
kill
around
him.
your hand. Punch me in the fucking mouth, man.
There's other great little scenes too, where like De Niro's complaining about burning the steak or whatever it is,
God, it's the
but at
best.
some point,
Yeah.
he tells his wife to get out of here,
Yeah,
and
and
then
they're cursing each
then
other.
Pesci looks at his wife and goes, "What are you looking at? Come on, get out of here!" Too. Like you can tell he's just doing what his brother's doing.
Yeah, stuff that wouldn't fly today for sure.
The Pesci De Niro relationship is very comedically funny in Raging Bull.
That scene you just mentioned, Adam, was like an in-house joke with my father and I growing up when he's yelling out the window, "Larry, I hear that dog." Can I curse on this?
Yeah.
All right. That fucking dog, I'm gonna come down and have that fucking dog for lunch, Larry. You hear me, Larry? You hear me? You're right. So much humor in that,
And,
Scorsese,
in
the wise guy.
Goodfellas, when he's going to see his mom, and his mom's like, "You gotta settle down and get a woman."
I settle down every night.
I think she's looking. Look at this dog. This dog.
Yeah.
This one's looking over here.
Yeah.
This guy's saying, "What do you want from me?"
Yeah. Oh,
Like,
that's so funny. And that was Mrs. Scorsese. by
I
the
know.
way, right?
I know.
Classic.
There's just tons of comedy.
Yeah. And
In,
you're right.
in those movies.
And he always juxtaposes it with some visceral violence or some great song. I mean,
the
he's
tension. The
man.
tension made the comedy pay off. Like some of the
said.
hardest people to laugh is at a funeral. Like I went to Super Dave Osborne's funeral, but his brother's Albert Brooks. And so, like, Albert Brooks did like a 20-minute eulogy. The place was floored. Like, I've never heard a comedian kill that hard. But it was the tension of the setting,
right?
You know what I mean, that made it. And so Scorsese would have all this tension and this violence and this conflict. And then when the joke came, it was like
the catharsis,
like a balloon just pop, you know.
You're right on there. I agree with you 100%, man. Yeah.
Yeah, and in Casino, which initially didn't get as much love as it should have, does now.
But I agree with Raging Bull and Goodfellas and even King of Comedy. My God, there's so many weirdly awkward moments. And Senator Bernhardt was great in that.
Oh, yeah.
Remember King of Comedy?
Yeah. There was a scene. Now, Dawson, you got to find it. I didn't want to do it. I see these things. I don't want to see them. But when Sharon Stone was like drunk and Pesci dragged her down the stairs and kind of threw her out of the restaurant scene. If you watch that scene, Sharon Stone's wearing a hand pad, a visible hand pad.
Wow. Oh, don't ruin it for me.
I ruined it. I was watching it the other night, wasn't paying attention. I saw a hand pad.
Wow.
And I rewound
Blooper.
it. Yeah. Like sometimes when you see guys running in pants and you can see the knee pad through the pants and then the guy takes the fall, always bothers me. Lets me know I'm not there.
She was phenomenal in that film. I happen to be good friends with her sister Kelly and her brother Mike, but that was a great film.
She was great.
Yeah.
James Woods was great.
James Woods.
James in that role, like the slimiest guy in the world. Like once he got alone with the kid.
Right.
That was.
And the scene with De Niro finds him too in the coffee shop. Yeah, that's some great stuff.
Yeah. So we'll go all that. Where are you with Tarantino?
I love Tarantino's films. My wife actually worked on Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. She said it was great. I mean, he's like a big kid. The other thing is that he makes everybody check their phone. So no one's on their phone. But he has this mantra that Lucia told me about that he'll just
That's your wife?
Yeah, my wife Lucia. He'll say, why are we doing this? Because we love making movies. And the crew will echo back to him. So he's really, my wife loved working with him. He's a great guy.
What
I love
does
his
she do?
films. Well, she just had my son, and she just had started her own business, but she started out as a model and as an actor as well.
Oh, so she was working.
She was working
cast.
on it. Yeah, she was in the cast, and she was doing some work on Once Upon a Time. He actually upgraded her and gave her some lines in one scene. It didn't make the film, but
she
loved working with him.
Manzonite or something?
No, she did so. She did a
Manzonite
sequence
sounds like luggage.
No kidding. Yeah, Samsonite, Manzonite. She did a sequence that was shot at the mansion. Yeah, and she said Margot Robbie was lovely, and she just loved the experience of working with Tarantino. She said he was like a big kid. You know, he just so vested in the process and loves it. You know, and I thought the movie was cool. I liked it.
Yeah, oh no, I liked it a lot. Tarantino's my favorite. I think it kind of started. I don't want to say started, but there was Tarantino's great. Oliver Stone used to do really good stuff. He kind of got mired up in some alternate thoughts or something, but he was
since Vietnam, I think. Yeah,
he did stuff Stone stuff I really look forward to, and then Scorsese'd be that way, and then Tarantino.
I agree.
Sort of took over for Scorsese, even though they're both still doing stuff and all that. It's not
Oliver
a clean
Stone's
break.
a tough nut. I auditioned for him a number of times, and he does this very interesting thing. I don't know if it's like a psyop or what the hell, but he sits in the back of the room and reads a paper, almost like draw me in. If I should give a shit, let me know, and I'll put down the op-ed.
Right.
But I love his films, like you said. I mean, a great writer, wrote Scarface, and then went on to make some great films.
What'd you audition for?
I think it was The Doors, actually.
Oh, that's a great film.
Yeah, he's made some great films. I really admire Oliver.
What part were you going for?
I think one of the guys in the band maybe was Ray Manzarek or something. Or I wound up meeting at a Laker game years later.
Manzarek.
I asked him. I said, "What was it like with Jim Morrison?" He goes, "We would be like on the road and about to go to a new city, and Jim would pull me aside and say something like, 'Ray, what happens when you die?'" I wanted to get some insight from Ray Manzarek at a Laker game, but anyway, that's Jim Morrison.
Jim Morrison's dad was a rear admiral in the Navy.
Copy. I read that.
And he was a big-time Navy guy.
Got it.
And he would just tell everyone he's dead.
Wow. Kind of rewriting his own history.
They just kind of moved it on, which is weird. Also, I don't know if I was the dad, if I'd be happy about that. But on the other hand, if your dad, was a rear admiral and Jim Morrison was chasing the dragon on some stage with his dick out in Florida, you might go, "No, that's not my son." Read the interview.
I have a great friend who I mentioned earlier. He used to work with Dr. Buss, and he had a record deal in the band in the early 60s, and he told me a great story. This is like in the 60s, mid-60s. He was at a party, and I guess Morrison was there drunk off his ass, and he was getting on a line with this woman, and apparently Hendrix was there, and they got into a fight, and he witnessed Jimi Hendrix go after Morrison. I go, there's a party. I wish I could have been a fly on the wall at that party, huh?
And they were yelling, "You'll never see your 28th birthday." Oh, yeah?
There you go.
You'll
27 Club. That's
never see your 28th birthday.
Just that image of Jimi Hendrix trying to pimp slap Jim Morrison. I don't know. That's pretty rough. Interesting, though.
Well, I'm picturing, as a guy who used to teach boxing, if Hendrix squared off, he would be a southpaw.
You're not kidding. With the lefty, right?
Yeah. All right. Shall we take a break and do
digress.
a little news? Sure. We'll do that with Anthony Michael Hall right after this. Let me tell you about Simply Safe. I recommend Simply Safe Home Security, advanced home security that puts you first. I've always used Simply Safe. We've always used Simply Safe. They've been sponsors here for over a decade, and the product is excellent. U.S. News & World Report says it's the best home security system, and that's 5 years running, 24/7 live guard protection. Lets monitoring agents stop a crime in real time, speaking to intruders through the smart alarm wireless indoor camera. So they're on to the thieves, even if you're out on vacation. No long-term contracts, cancel anytime. Try it risk-free with a 60-day satisfaction guarantee. And right now, my listeners get 20% off a new Simply Safe system with Fast Protect monitoring at simplysafe.com. That's simplysafe.com/Adam. Simplysafe.com/Adam. Save that 20%. There's no safe like Simply Safe. Let me tell you about Chime. Summer gets expensive. Yeah, people are traveling, they're eating out, going to bars. It's getting expensive. So a Chime checking account helps you reach your financial goals while enjoying the summer. Fee-free overdraft up to $200 with SpotMe, or get paid up to 2 days early with direct deposit. Learn more at chime.com/Adam. No monthly or maintenance fees. Over 60,000 fee-free ATMs. Eligible members get complimentary boosts to increase a friend's SpotMe limit. When you give a boost, they can boost you back and raise your limit. Just set up a direct deposit into your Chime account. After a qualifying direct deposit of $200 plus, Chime will notify you to enroll in SpotMe. Once active, Chime spots you up to your limit when you exceed your balance. That's Chime. A great way to summer. Right, Dawson?
Live it up this summer and make progress toward your financial goals with Chime. Open your account in minutes at chime.com/Adam. That's chime.com/Adam. Chime feels like progress. Banking services and debit card provided by the Bancorp Bank N.A. or Stride Bank N.A. Members FDIC. SpotMe eligibility requirements and overdraft limits apply. Boosts are available to eligible Chime members enrolled in SpotMe and are subject to monthly limits. Terms and conditions apply. Go to chime.com/disclosures for details.
Doomberg, the #1 financial newsletter on Substack. Concise, entertaining, and provocative articles on energy, finance, and geopolitics. More than 230,000 subscribers, 6 to 8 articles a month. I read Cooking the Books, exposing the lunacy of the Green New Math. It was so eye-opening and informative, I couldn't have read about it anywhere else. So, if you want to get stuff that you won't get anywhere else, visit doomberg.com/Adam. Enter your email, and you'll get previews of all their articles and 5 free articles in a welcome email to get you a flavor of what Doomberg is all about. That's doomberg.com/Adam. Get the 5 free articles. Doomberg.com/Adam.
It's time for Nicaraguan Name That Movie with Adam's buddy Oswaldo. See if you can guess which movie this famous line is from.
The next time I have to come here, I am cracking a skull.
If you said The Breakfast Club,
The next time I have to come in here, I'm cracking skulls.
you're correct. Now, back to the show.
Trigger warning, Anthony Michael Hall, and it's coming out on Netflix June 21st. Jessica Alba's also in this. Anthony plays the big boss man.
Corrupt senator. Ezekiel Swan. What a name.
Life's a weird thing. So I had this laptop computer that was sitting in storage or something, and I hadn't opened it in I don't know, 4 years or 3 years or something. I just charged it up and I opened it the other day, and I just hit the mail, and at the top of it is an email from Nick Santora telling me that voice that you just heard, Oswaldo Castillo, just died. But this was 3 years ago.
Oh, wow.
But it was Nick giving his condolences and explaining, what how sorry he was and stuff like that. So it's weird that we were just talking about Santora, and then we just played Ozzy's voice. And Nick loved Ozzy because Ozzy was in a movie I made and stole the show. But Nick didn't know Ozzy wasn't an actor. He was that guy.
Got it.
And he thought it was, somebody doing an amazing job at this character, sort of R. Lee Ermey-esque, which is that guy's not. That's who that guy is.
Right.
So full circle.
Also
with
reminds
Nick
me of
and
Guillermo
Ozzy.
too. Talk about a great comic. What a comedian he's become.
Yeah,
he's great on the carpet. Nothing better than Guillermo.
Yeah, Guillermo's great. I think he just worked security for the first.
He should own his own town in Mexico at this point.
I know. He was probably at Kimmel's for. Geez, I don't know, 5 years or 3 years, or I was there at the beginning.
Yeah.
For a long time.
Very loyal guy, Mr. Kimmel.
Oh, the best.
Yeah.
The best. Nobody's better. All right, we got some, maybe Centaur's a little better. We got some news to get into.
Yeah, so there's a viral video of a speed walking race that went around over the weekend. It was for the European Athletics Championship. And I typically don't watch speed walking races. But,
that's always hilarious.
but this one, the reason everyone's talking about it is because the Spanish competitor, Garcia Caro, she did a celebration way too early. So she thought she was ahead. She celebrates. She thinks she's getting bronze. She's getting her first medal at a major. And she starts celebrating, and she gets passed up by a Ukrainian. Like
everyone loves that story, right? The premature celebration.
Premature celebration. We've talked about it in football.
Don't count your chickens.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, there's video of it somewhere. So
I bet she sped walk out of there after that.
The rules for speed walking is you cannot have both feet off the ground at the same time.
Yeah, one foot must be touching the ground.
All right. Seems difficult to enforce.
I know, especially it goes so quick. And so she thought she was ahead in the last lap to where she went and got her country's flag and draped it around herself like a cape.
She went nationalistic pride too. Huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
And then she started cheering, and then she looks over to her right, and the Ukrainian competitor.
Wow, that's a big overreacher.
Gets the bronze.
Wow.
She doesn't get it. And the person who beat her, she just served a 4-year doping ban.
Oh, here she is. Wow.
But
oh, and it's Gus. Oh my word, she's been caught.
Yeah. Wow. Speed walking.
They're fast.
Has evolved.
Here, look. You can see her. She thinks she got it. She's like, yeah. She sticks her tongue out. She's ready to go. Oh no!
Reality bites. Reality bites.
She's gonna be a meme. That's a meme, right?
Oh yeah,
there.
she's getting memed. Yeah.
Brutal.
Yeah. Oh man.
That's like
how big was her lead?
Yeah, it looked like
It was big enough to where she can get the flag.
Wow. She thought she was the winner.
Well, if I know her, she'll land on her feet. But one foot, only one at a time. But she'll be back. Can't keep her down. Wow.
There you go.
And then where are you if you're the second place person who now has first place, but it was because the person was hanging back and kind of coasting?
Yeah. Right.
You're still that into it, like, famously in Ford v. Ferrari, and I did a doc on it, so I know the story, but Ken Miles, is winning. He's told at Le Mans, he's told to slow down and let the other guys catch up. Do you know the story?
I think I remember hearing about it. Yeah.
And, the Ford GT40s are all going to sweep first, second, third, and they want to get a picture of them all going across the finish line at the same time.
Right.
So Ken Miles, who's way out front, they sort of radio, though they didn't have radios back then, but they sort of get the message to him when they're doing a driver's change, like the big man, Ford, wants to slow it down. We want a photo finish of all the Fords coming across at the same time. So then he slows down, and then they cross at the same time, and then, I don't know, Bruce McLaren or who caught up to him ends up getting the victory because his car started back 18 feet further.
Got it.
In the grid. So he traveled a further distance.
And
when
that
they
was
crossed.
detailed in the movie, right? This sequence?
Yeah, that was in the movie, and I did a doc about it, so I sort of was able to lay it out. But I don't know, you win Le Mans, but you won Le Mans because the guy who was supposed to win Le Mans didn't, was told to slow down, and then you passed him or you finished at the same time. I mean, you won Le Mans.
Right.
That's pretty good. There is actually, you know what, Dawson, you can find this. It's a Porsche. Anthony's a Porsche guy, but there is footage of Ken Miles talking after. So the big three would be Le Mans, 24 hours of Daytona, and the 12 hours of Sebring. There is a interview with Ken Miles at Sebring after winning Sebring because Dan Gurney's car broke on the very last lap of like a 12-hour race, and he pushed his car across Gurney pushes his car, but that's illegal to get out of your car, whatever. And Ken Miles gets interviewed, and he's like, I'm embarrassed. Like he just said it. He said it. I feel bad for Dan, and I feel kind of embarrassed. But I'll take the Triple Crown. But it's interesting that he would have been the only guy to take the Triple Crown in 1 year. That's Le Mans, Daytona, and Sebring. But he got screwed out of Le Mans because he slowed down. But Gurney got screwed out of Sebring that same year because he broke at the very end of the race and Miles won. So Miles would have kind of had an asterisk by it anyway, because one of the three of the triple, what happened to him happened to Gurney the race before at Sebring.
Boomerang karma.
Boomerang, yeah.
That's a wild story, man.
Oh, the craziest one is...
I love McQueen, so Le Mans is great. I mean, not much of a movie, but it's exciting to
visually.
watch. Yeah.
Yeah. You know who owns that car?
Who does?
Take a guess. Who
Adam
owns
Carolla.
the Le Mans
Jimmy Kimmel or Adam
917?
Carolla? Jay Leno? Good guess.
I'm going to tell you, and then you're going to be upset.
Seinfeld.
There you go.
He did.
He's got that car. I've seen it. It's in a million pieces in Van Nuys, California.
Wow. So Jerry has a big warehouse, huh? Wow.
Yeah, it's $25 million worth of car. Jesus Christ. Yeah, that scene. Ken Miles at Sebring. I think you'll find it. So I
got it. Stand by.
This is how guys used to roll.
Yeah.
Now they'd be taking selfies and screaming at everyone and whatever. But Ken Miles wins, feels bad for Gurney, and says he's embarrassed. That's how men used to act in this country, or maybe throughout the world. Yeah. You didn't feel good about winning a race that you kind of didn't win.
Right.
Or you probably shouldn't have won.
Right.
So I don't know how the Ukrainian woman is doing, or whatever, the woman who won the one who won, but also, speed walking's come a long way.
I mean, I think their time was like an hour 28 something, so it was a long race.
I honestly did not know it was an event.
Yes,
wow.
2 laps.
Yeah.
Wow.
Just kidding. But
Speed walking.
3-pointer from Chris.
Speed walking. All I remember from speed walking is I only saw guys do it, and they were always wearing those weird painter's hats. You had to wear a weird cap, like the weird papery painter. That was the cap of the speed walker. I don't know who started that.
Yeah.
All right, I'm sorry. You got Ken? Ken at Sebring. You can hear the real Ken Miles.
All right, cool.
And see that it's how he kind of looked and stuff, too. Getting
Walt Hanskin third. Skip Scott fourth. First Sports. 4 Porsches in the top 10. Winter Seymour Stingray first GT. Victory Lane and the Gurney story after this word.
Ken Miles and Lloyd Ruby, and of course the Beauty Queens.
Beauty Queens.
Ken Miles, are you as surprised as we are?
I'm slightly ashamed.
Well, it was a big day for Ford, wasn't it?
It was a good day for Ford. I'm very happy with the Ford Motor Company. I'm very sorry indeed for that. He really deserved to win the race. He
Looks like Geddy Lee from Rush.
Something happened to the last one.
How did Lloyd go for it?
All
This is your third big
So he
long
says he's slightly ashamed and he feels really bad for Dan. Dan Gurney ran the race, deserved to win the race, and he feels ashamed. That's a bygone era.
Right.
Well,
You would not see that anymore.
It's kind of still happening with athletes who, let's say, like Jalen Brunson on the Knicks. They were interviewing, hey, how'd you think the season was? It's the best the Knicks have done in decades. And he goes, no, this didn't count. We didn't win. We're out,
like
we're out
that.
of contention. We failed.
Yeah.
I'm ashamed.
Okay.
Without advancing, right? Yeah.
Sorry for Julius Randle.
All right. Okay. Look, I always love it. I love that. I love it when humility.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. I could tell you a Santora humility story, but I won't get into it. But it's okay. He did. Somebody made a movie that was his idea that he told me. He told me 2 years earlier. I got this idea. I bought the rights to it. I'm doing this thing, and blah blah blah. And then 2 years later. 3 years later, movie came out. His movie came out, and I called him. I was like, "Nick, you got your movie made?" And he's going, "No, that was not me."
Wow.
And I said, aren't you pissed? Are you going to sue somebody?" Or whatever? He goes, "No, it's on me. I screwed up. It's not going to happen again." That was it.
Boom. On to the next.
On to the next.
That's a trip, huh?
Yeah.
Theft.
Speaking of movies, so Glen Powell just had a movie out on Netflix, a wonderful streaming service which will have trigger warning out in a couple of weeks.
Right.
So he was promoting the film Hitman, and he was on a podcast, and he was talking about his sister's friend. So he was telling a story about a sister's friend who went on a date with a guy. She went to his apartment at the end of the night, and he offers to massage her with some lotion, and she just thought the vibe was too weird. So after getting a massage with some of the lotion on her shoulder, she leaves immediately. And then here's the rest of the story here.
Wow.
Yeah. That happened to me, but I was like, I'm taking the lotion.
Yeah.
Her skin starts itching like crazy the next day. She goes to the doctor the next day, and he does a test on her skin, and it turns out that it's like a black market lotion that breaks down skin for human consumption. This man was rubbing lotion on her body to eat her. So the doctor's like, you got to give me this person's address, and you should call the police. They go to this guy's house, and he had several girls' bodies in the house.
Dude.
Wow.
Yeah. So
cannibalism in a tube.
Right.
Wow.
So this clip went viral over the weekend, but a lot of people are saying this sounds very similar to an urban legend from back in the day.
There's a couple things. If somebody says, "Would you like a back rub? I got some lotion. Let me just put on my surgical gloves." I'd be like, "Well, wait a minute. Are we getting intimate here or not? Why do you got to go put welder's gloves up and a full smock and a mask on?"
Or you go, "Mr. Weinstein, I won't be available when the film is being made." No, that's another story.
Who makes this cream?
That's
You would
crazy.
feel it burning like a. That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, skin cream that makes your skin shed. Wow.
And then, I mean, didn't the internet kill urban legends? I mean, there were, of course, before the internet, we all knew a few growing up.
There was like the story of the hook hanging on the back of the van. That was a camping story. That was like some guy with a hook. I don't know. These are campfire. Then there's all the kind of Rod Stewart stuff, and then there's the oh God, what's his name? Richard Gere stuff. Yeah. But yeah, I'm not buying this.
I don't think anybody is anymore. Yeah, but it got millions and millions of views over the weekend.
Wow.
Made news.
What's a cream that's gonna take your skin and
get it ready for human consumption?
No, I don't think this exists.
Right.
I've never been in that pharmacy. I get.
Well, it's black market.
I get
Adam.
crab shampoo. I get that. That has a practical application. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's move on to there's a juror who is dismissed from a trial after reporting that a woman dropped a bag of $120,000 in cash at her home and offered her more money if she would vote to acquit 7 people charged with stealing over $40 million from a program meant to feed children during the pandemic.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And so she dropped the dime on the person that dropped the cash.
She dropped the dime on the person who dropped the dollars,
Yeah.
And she was removed from the trial.
Yeah, the pandemic fraud seemed like crazy. How many? There's never been a better time to be an official, or to run a city, or to be a congressperson, or to be a governor, or whatever, because there's no. So they just sit around and they go like, well, in California, we just spent $24 billion on homelessness, and now we got more homeless problems. And everyone just goes, I don't even know. I gotta go home. I'm tired of this.
I don't have time to think about this anymore.
Yeah, what I'm saying is it's like they go. It's so astronomical. So like when I was growing up, it'd be like that house cost $200,000. You know, your dad makes $31,000 a year. That house is $200,000. Your dad makes $22,000 a year. That Ferrari is $61,000. But it's all stuff you could kind of wrap your mind around. Right. Now it's like, well, we sent out checks, and prisoners in the California penal system took $200 billion in fraudulent PPE checks, and we all just go, what are you going to do?
Well, yeah,
I don't know.
A lot of
you
people,
can't.
a lot of people got their hands caught in the cookie jar with the PPE.
Once we got into the billions, everyone just went,
it's too much.
We're building a monorail from Merced to Bakersfield. We're $200 billion over budget.
Right.
Yeah, okay, so I'm going home.
Right.
I'm exhausted.
It's so crazy. The deficit? We pay $1 billion in every single day just in interest on, and they just go, I know, but I'm going home.
Who's getting these metrics? Yeah, exactly.
It's so mind-numbing that we don't know what to do with it anymore. Right. When we were dealing in, like we'd go, that guy took $12,000 from that store owner to change his policy. We'd go, that's outrageous. That's half a year's work for Jim Carolla. But once we got into the billions, we all just sit back and go, I don't know. Just print more money.
Just tap out at a certain point. Yeah.
So these 7 defendants, they're the first of 70 defendants expected to go to trial in a conspiracy that cost taxpayers $250 million.
Yeah.
Prosecutors say the fraction of the money went to feed low-income kids, while the rest was spent on luxury cars, jewelry, travel, and property.
It never fails.
Yeah.
That's all we can do.
I remember first catching wind of all these stories, and I was just amazed how many people were just trying to milk it with the PPE thing. Like, my business. Yeah, we lost 200,000, like you're saying, Adam, with the numbers. Like, okay.
Right. Yeah.
Nebulous.
Let me give a plug since Riley Gaines is waiting out in the lounge there. Trigger Warning is the name. Netflix, June 21st. Anthony, come back anytime you like. Please, I feel like we just barely scratched your lotto ticket here, man.
It was a pleasure, man. Thanks for having me today.
Great. Always been a fan. Riley Gaines, who I'm a fan of. She was the swimmer. Well, she got beat at the end, but it was by a dude. So she's got an excuse. She didn't slow down and wave the flag. Can't do that in the pool. Man, that shit will slow you down. So we'll talk to Riley right after this. Well, doesn't it seem like every week there's a major leak of customer info from phone or healthcare or other companies? That's right. People are getting all your information these days. I mean, they ain't breaking into your home anymore. They're getting your info. Well, that's where Aura comes in. All-in-one online safety solution helps protect your information about you, your family, and it stops it from being sold to data brokers. Data brokers are legally required to remove your personal information if you ask, but they make it difficult and time-consuming. Aura does the work for you. Aura also helps reduce annoying robocalls, telemarketers, and junk mail by sending takedown requests on your behalf. Plus, Aura monitors for identity theft before it happens and scans the dark web for your email addresses, passwords, social security number, and other sensitive information. So protect yourself with Aura, right, Dawson?
For a limited time, Aura is offering our listeners a 14-day trial plus a free check of your data to see if your personal information has been leaked online, all for free, while you visit aura.com/trust. That's aura.com/trust to sign up for a 14-day free trial and start protecting you and your loved ones. aura.com/trust. Certain terms apply. Be sure to check the site for details.
O'Reilly Auto Parts. Well, in the business of keeping your car on the road. That's what they do. Friendly, helpful service and parts and all the knowledge you need. I love these guys. I've always, even before they became a sponsor, a million years. I mean, back when I was renting a house up in La Crescenta, I'd always go to O'Reilly up there on Foothill Boulevard. Still there. Just passed there the other day. Always get my stuff from O'Reilly. Thousands of parts and accessories in stock, either in-store or online. Check engine light. Is that on? Well, don't ignore it. O'Reilly VersaScan is a free diagnostic service that provides a detailed, easy-to-read report. Need wipers replaced or a brake light fix? They can help you find the right part or point you in the nearest repair shop so you can get it done that way. And they'll also test your battery for free in or out of the car. Talk to the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts today or visit O'ReillyAuto.com/Adam. That's O'ReillyAuto.com/Adam.
It's time to check Adam's voicemail.
Adam, Jason in Georgia. Just passed by a car wash that's not called a car wash anymore. It's called an auto spa. Get it on.
You can leave us a message at 888-634-1744.
Yeah, you can take your previously owned automobile, not used automobile, previously owned to the auto spa. Riley Gaines is joining us. She's got a book out, Swimming Against the Current, Fighting for Common Sense in a World That's Lost Its Mind. And I'm with you, and it's wherever you find finer books. Good to see you, Riley.
Good to see you, Adam. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, well, thanks for standing up for Sanity. I think we're living in a moment where there's some snapshots, and when I think when archaeologists are sort of going over the rubble of this time period, your story is going to be one of the stories they look at, and it'll just be, what were we thinking? It all seems so insane. I think a lot of it is people are caught off guard. It's just something where you go, look, you got to put a black square up for Black Lives Matter. You got to do it now or you're going to get into trouble. And you go, oh, okay. Oh, yeah. All right. And you're going to compete against a dude in a swimming pool. But what? No, if you say anything, you're going to get thrown off the team. Oh, okay. What's going on? Like, they have the element of surprise, and everything is so insane that lots of people just kind of go along with the insanity.
No, I think you're entirely right. I think we're at this point for a couple reasons. One of which I think, half of this gender stuff, the stuff we're seeing in schools. I think a lot of people, especially being from Tennessee, I can speak to how people around me feel. They think, oh, well, this isn't going to happen to us. We're in Tennessee. This isn't happening. It's not infiltrating into our schools. And there's almost this sense of complacency with it. And I think that complacency has allowed us to get to where we are. Let's be very clear. There is no one immune to the madness that we are seeing that has taken over, of course, corporate America, the media, academia. It's infiltrated into every realm of life, so it seems. And now we have a very loud but fringe minority who screeches. They are violent, they are angry, they are filled with hate and vitriol, something that I know, I'm certain that you see, something that I see, and it keeps a lot of people scared. And a lot of these people, these progressives, they're in these positions of power that are advancing the insanity that we're seeing, and so now we're living in a state of fear, it's insane. 5 years ago, if you would have, I think, asked any one of us, anyone for that matter, that we would be debating that if men can become women and vice versa, and if we should allow men into women's sports, and that we would have a sitting Supreme Court justice who can't even answer the question of what is a woman because she claims she's not a biologist. There's no way people would have believed you, but nonetheless, here we are.
Yeah, well, they rely on a couple of things. They get into positions of power, and most people who are sane, they just want to get along. They're just like, don't hassle it. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of kind of, well, you got the crazy daughter and she's vegan and it's Thanksgiving. It's like, just give her the bean curd shaped like a turkey leg. Just don't say anything. I just don't want to get into this. I want to enjoy my Thanksgiving, you know? So the loud people always have an advantage over the people that just want to get along, enjoy their life, enjoy their family. You know what I mean? And so then they put them in positions of power. And the two things humans want to do is they want to get along and they don't want to be shamed in a public square or lose their livelihood. So what it does is it forces a huge number of people just to go, just keep walking. And someone goes, shouldn't you say something about this? This is nuts. And they go, I know it's nuts. I don't agree with it, but I got a job. I just want to get along. And so these people know that they can essentially blackmail most of the populace and many people in the news and many people who host shows and do everything else just to go along with something they totally don't believe in because they want to get along. It's a form of blackmail. I have a daughter. I have a son. They are twins. The daughter, if she doesn't get her way, is loud and proud and going to make everyone on this road trip miserable. And so there's a lot of me saying to my son, I know it's not right, but just get in the backseat. Which I don't want to deal. I don't want to deal with this. You know, it's blackmail.
That's what. So Katie Ledecky just did an interview, the most decorated female swimmer of all time. And when they asked her about the whole Leah Thomas thing or transgender people in the sport, she just said, I prefer not to get into it. I don't want to talk about politics.
Right, because she wants to get along.
Right.
She has thoughts about it. If I gave her 2 beers and we sit on a sofa, she'd wax on about chicks with dicks shouldn't be in swimming pools. But she's not going to say anything. And that's on them because it takes courage for people like you to say something, because the more people that sort of come out, the easier it is for the people that follow you.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. That's what we've seen over the past 2 years or so, that courage really is contagious. Now, if you compare now to 2 years ago, I mean, over 20 states are suing the Biden administration and the Department of Education for his illegal administrative rewrite of Title IX. We wouldn't have seen that 2 years ago. I think people are more comfortable now using the biologically correct pronouns, sex-based pronouns, not adhering to the preferred pronoun nonsense. Again, I don't think we saw this 2 years ago. So we are, day by day, I think people are becoming more bold. People are waking up. Everyday people, people who maybe would have considered themselves apolitical. Something I think is almost ironic is the amount of Democrats, people who consider themselves lifelong liberals, people who are a part of the LGBT, specifically the LGB part of this community, who are waking up and saying, wait, maybe the T part here doesn't actually take us forward. They say this is progressive, indicating we were moving in the positive forward direction, but I think a lot of the LGB community sees this as regressive. They see this as hurting their entire community. So again, just to reiterate, this issue, especially as it pertains to sports, it really is a unifying issue. Not the way the media portrays it, not the way that our elected officials are voting. You would think this is a super polarizing. You would think this is divisive. It's something that falls almost entirely on party lines. But again, that is not the reality of it. Every Gallup poll shows it. So just to, I guess, prove that truth and sanity, they really always do prevail.
So let's go through the process for you. You are swimming at Kentucky. Brag a little about your history. I know it's pretty impressive.
Well, thank you. There's a lot of things I accomplished that I will forever be proud of. But I finished my career at University of Kentucky as a 12-time NCAA All-American, a 5-time SEC champion, actually the SEC record holder in the 200 butterfly, making me one of the fastest Americans of all time, 2-time Olympic trial qualifier, SEC Scholar Athlete of the Year, SEC Community Service Leader of the Year. But to say it's a lifelong journey to compete and ultimately be successful at the highest level.
Let me ask you a swimming-related question.
Come on.
Story came out about 6 or 8 months ago where it's like a group of Christian kids were harassing bottlenose dolphins in the sea in Hawaii. And I was like, bullshit. And they were harassing the dolphins. I was like, a person can't beat a dolphin in the open sea. If the dolphins want to go away, they'll go away because they swim 28 miles an hour. In your prime, could you have caught a dolphin in the open sea? Or am I right in saying this is a BS story?
No, that's entirely a BS story.
Yes, I knew it.
Yeah.
12 times. Yeah. And a scholar athlete and champion. And if Riley Gaines couldn't catch a dolphin in the open sea off the coast of Maui, then these Christian kids couldn't have done it either.
Maybe I can just identify as a dolphin. That's the next step.
Do you know how fast you swim? Do they I mean, everything's timed for you, of course, but can you swim? I think I looked it up. Can you swim 6 miles an hour? Or
let's see. No one can swim 6 miles an hour.
I knew it.
Yeah, no, there's nobody that can do that.
Can't catch a dolphin.
No. Let's see. I mean, it takes about, let's say for a very elite level swimmer, it takes about 15 minutes for a mile. That's very, very fast. You couldn't keep that up for 6 miles for sure.
Right.
But yeah, in college though, we practice 6 hours every single day, and we swim about 50,000 yards, which is almost equivalent to about 10 miles every single day.
The discipline and the mental fortitude of swimmers is next level, and the reason I say that is because if I'm doing something physically grueling, I have to have my earbuds in and I have to be listening to something, anything to pull me away from what I'm doing, the monotony of running for 20 minutes on a treadmill or whatever it is. Swimming, you just stare at the bottom of the pool in perpetuity. Line. You just stare at a tile black line for 6 hours a day. You really...
Not to mention holding your breath. So you're staring at the same black line. You can't talk to other people. You're holding your breath. You're surrounded by, you're indulged in chlorine, one of the most toxic chemicals. It is not an enjoyable experience.
But it's
a love hate, right?
But you have to be able to go somewhere in your mind. Otherwise you would go insane, right? And so you have to have a kind of a discipline and an ability to sort of shut off the pain and shut off the monotony and all the reasons nobody wants to work out. You have to completely master that in yourself. And that has an application outside of the pool. First off, everything seems kind of easy, compared to that. But you take that discipline, you take that focus, and then you just bring it outside of the pool and apply it to society in work and writing books and things of that nature. Am I putting words in your mouth, or do you find that to be true?
No, you're absolutely right. I by no means felt prepared for this scenario that I have been seemingly thrusted into now in terms of, I guess, my knowledge of civics or civil process or government. I knew nothing. I knew we had 3 branches. Didn't know what they did. I still don't know what they do. I don't even think they know what they do, to be totally honest with you. My public speaking courses, my face would turn the color of a tomato. I could keep going on, but while not being prepared in that way, it is playing sports that gave me the skill set to adapt. It gave me the leadership, being a team captain at University of Kentucky for 2 years, leading my team to an SEC title. First time in program history, we were able to do that as a team. It gave me communication skills. It taught me how to set goals and work to achieve those goals. As you said, resiliency and perseverance and dedication, all things that I'm utilizing now even more so than I was when I was swimming. So it shows how it transcends far beyond just athletics, which is a big part in why I'm fighting so hard to preserve Title IX, to preserve women's sports and equal opportunities in sports, is because now, again, at the hands of the NCAA, at the hands of the International Olympic Committee, at the hands of President Biden himself and every radical Democrat in the federal government, in state government, in local government, they're denying girls that opportunity to exceed or to succeed athletically, but also to develop as a person in your career, within your personal relationships. That's what we're denying young girls. I mean, the message that we're being sent loud and clear as women is that we aren't worthy. We're not worthy of privacy in our locker rooms. We're not worthy of safety in our sports. We're not worthy of equal opportunity. No, the message that we're being sent is that our sole purpose, why we exist almost, is to validate the feelings and the identity of a man, which is a terrible message to be sending to young girls.
Well, walk us through how everything unfolded several years ago. It's hard to tell with COVID now. I always apologize on my timelines for everyone because COVID scrambled my internal calendar. I can't figure out when John Paxton died. I can't figure out when
Bill Paxton died.
Bill Paxton announced another budget.
Yeah.
I bet this is about 3 years now. I'm trying to 2.5.
A little over 2. A little over 2.
So walk us through the events and as they were laid out and as you experienced them.
Yeah, interesting you mentioned COVID, because COVID hit at the end of my sophomore year. And so we were robbed of an NCAA championships in that way, about 3 days before we were supposed to leave for the national championships. Again, the meet you work all year, really all of your life for. 3 days before we were supposed to go, COVID hits. The world shut down. We were sent home. We were eventually able to come back after several months at home.
Yeah, that's the first, by the way, the first robbery is the whole COVID robbery. All the people couldn't play their senior year. If I couldn't play my senior year of high school football, I would have killed myself. That's the only thing I wanted to do. I mean, robbed so many people, so many healthy people who didn't need any of this, just destroyed groups of people. But sorry. Continue.
No, you're right. Yeah, and then we came back and dealt with the COVID theatrics.
Yes.
The mask mandates and the vaccine mandates and the social distancing and the contact tracing, which have either of you seen a swimmer in the water wearing a mask? No, but they certainly tried. We essentially waterboarded ourselves every single day. It was not enjoyable.
How did that even physically work?
I mean, the rules, as you know, they were so silly. So anytime that we were in the water, we had to have our mask on the pool deck, your little cloth mask getting soaked. It was so wet.
Right.
But as soon as you got out of the water, after practice, after a race, I mean, anytime you were outside of the water, you had to have your mask on. And so you're breathing in because you're labored. You're taking these big gasps of air in. You're breathing in the water from your mask. I mean, it was a whole, It was a whole mess.
I know
but
that. That in band practice, you see people playing a clarinet through a hole in their. We were just batshit crazy. That my whole thing. My thing was. It wasn't with the powers that be. It was the people. I was just like, what are you people doing? Don't go along with this stuff. Obviously, these people are insane. The people that are telling you to wear a mask in the swimming pool are insane. But we're more insane because we're listening to the insane people who are telling us what to do. God, it was sad.
And I would say, really the first time I learned how to stand up for myself to authority figures was during COVID. And they said, and it's the same blackmail you speak of, right? They said, Riley, you're the team captain. You're supposed to be the leader. You don't want to hurt your team. You have to get the vaccine.
Right.
To which I said, no, you can't make me do that. I'm young. I'm healthy. I'd already had COVID at this point. They continued on, it's mandatory. It's mandatory. If you don't, you won't be able to travel. To which I called them on their BS. No, I didn't get the vaccine. And yes, I got to travel to every meet. So that's when I learned how to stand up for myself. And the parallels between that and what we faced my senior year were uncanny. I think that's when they learned they could control us. And that was certainly shown. But nonetheless, junior year, this is when I ended up ultimately placing 7th in the country. Wasn't my best time. I knew I was capable of more. And so it was right then and there that I placed 7th my junior year, that I set a goal for my senior year to win a national title, which would, of course, mean becoming the fastest woman in the country in my respective event. I'm right on pace to achieve this goal. Senior year rolls around. I'm 3rd in the nation, trailing the girl in 2nd by a few 100ths of a second, a girl I knew very well. But the swimmer who was leading the nation, by body lengths, might I add, was a swimmer that none of us, not me, not my teammates, not my coaches, not my competitors, not my family, a swimmer none of us had ever heard of before. And this is the first time we became aware of a swimmer named Leah Thomas. Lots of red flags. I mean, he was a senior from UPenn, which is not a school that has ever historically produced a swimmer of that caliber, leading the nation by body lengths in events ranging from the 100 freestyle, which is a sprint, all the freestyle events in between through the mile, which is long distance. I mean, none of it made sense. And we continued to stay in the dark. Of course, keep in mind, we hadn't seen a photo of this person.
Right.
And a lot more clear. But we continued to stay in the dark until an article came out disclosing that Leah Thomas is actually Will Thomas and swam 3 years on the men's team at UPenn before deciding to switch to the women's team, which, as you can imagine, because it's virtually the same story in every single scenario we are seeing across the country, he sucked as a man and became a record smasher as a quote-unquote woman. I watched him win a national title. I watched him beat out Olympians, American record holders. I mean, the most impressive and accomplished female swimmers this world has ever seen by body lengths. I watched the girls who placed 9th and 17th cry. I mean, literally cry in tears, knowing that they missed out on being named an All-American by one place. I felt the extreme discomfort in the locker room when you turn around and there's a 6'4", 22-year-old man, fully intact, fully exposing himself, inches away from where you were simultaneously fully undressed. I mean, I heard the whispers of anger and frustration from those girls who, just like myself, had worked our entire lives to get to that meet. But the second day of competition was the day that he and I competed against each other in the 200 free, which, almost impossibly enough, resulted in a tie. Meaning we went the exact same time down to the 100th of a second.
Wow.
Which is incredibly embarrassing for a 6'4" man. He couldn't even beat me. What a loser.
Oh, yeah, I would crush you if I got in that pool, sweetheart.
Yeah, you and that dolphin.
Yeah, I'd take that dolphin. I could harass the dolphin. So,
but anyways,
so you're swimming against him. What does he's literally 6'4" and shows up wearing what? What was he wearing? A single
women's swimsuit with a bulge, Adam.
With a bulge. God, there had to be a surreal quality to this whole thing. Like a kind of, am I in a dream? This sounds bizarre. And more bizarre, everyone is going along with it and telling you to go along with what seems like pure insanity. It feels like the definition of insanity. You know, believing Elvis is still alive is sort of insane, but this is super insane.
No doubt. And to add, and something that the media has naturally done a terrible job of covering, I just for optics purposes, and again to hone in on the fact that this was like a South Park episode. Okay, to further that, it's the finals of the 100 freestyle. Okay, top 8 women in the entire country, the entire nation, and you've got a 6'4" man in a women's swimsuit with the bulge next to another athlete who was transitioning, but this athlete is a female who was transitioning to a man who we were told we fully had to treat as a man. And so next to Leah Thomas, again, in his women's swimsuit, we had a woman wearing only a Speedo, nothing covering her top. I'm sitting there watching this, and I'm like, it's me. I'm the problem. It must be me. This is the freaking Twilight Zone, like a Babylon Bee headline or like an SNL skit, but it was reality. Yeah, it was. I feel ashamed, honestly, to say it, but there was kind of like this sense of this overall consensus of, bewilderment. It felt comical. Of course, it was heartbreaking to watch, but it just felt like a circus. I mean, that's just the reality of it.
So you tied down to the 100th of a second. I don't even know if they don't go any further than 100th, I guess. And you tie, and now what?
So we go behind the awards podium, where the NCAA official looks at both him and myself, Thomas towering over me, And the official looks at me and says, great job, you two, you tied, congratulations, but we only have one trophy. And we're going to give this trophy to Leah. Sorry, Riley, you don't get one. My heart rate was high, having just raced. My adrenaline was still pumping. And so the first thing that I thought ended up being the first thing that I said. And the first thought that I had was, isn't this everything that Title IX was passed to prevent from happening? What do you mean you're going to give the trophy to the man and the women's 200 free? To which he didn't know how to answer this. They didn't give him a script of what to say when someone asked why. And so he tries a couple different excuses, but I actually appreciate his honesty when he says, and understand he said this with a sad face. Okay, he sounded sad, he looked sad. I could tell he didn't even believe what he was about to say, but this official looked at me and he said, Riley, I'm so sorry, but we have been advised as an organization that when photos are being taken, it's crucial that the trophy's in Leah's hands. Again, you can pose with this one, but you have to give yours back. Leah takes the trophy home. You go home empty-handed, end of story. And that was the moment when, Adam, that was the moment when I could no longer wait, because truthfully, that's what I was doing. I just thought someone else would say something. I thought a coach, I thought a parent, someone's dad, quite frankly, would come down there and yank this man out of our locker rooms. I thought someone within the NCAA, an official, I thought someone with political power, someone who was supposed to be protecting us would protect us. But it was in that moment that I realized, first of all, what a naive thought, to wait for people to do the right thing unprovoked. We would be waiting for forever. But it was really the moment when I realized, how in the world could I expect someone to stand up for me if I wasn't even willing to stand up for myself? This has to come from us as women, as female athletes. And so, again, the unfair competition on top of the locker room, on top of the silencing and the muzzling that we faced, all the things just compiled, and I felt guilty. I felt responsible. I felt like I had, and it's because I had participated in the farce. I was just as bad as the people who had created and enforced these policies, because I went along with it.
Yeah, well, I don't know about just as bad, but there's a thing, like I said, we just experienced it with COVID, where people got caught sort of off guard and manipulated and sort of hustled, almost felt like kind of walking down the street and some guy in a windbreaker that said FBI said, hey, Adam Carolla, I need you to come with me. And I was like, huh, what? And he's like, come on, get in the car. And I'm like, oh, what's going on? Where are we going? And next thing you know, we're just going to some safe house or something. And I'm like, I should have stopped and said, where are we going? Or what is this? But they just kind of, and then you're in the back of the car and you're going, hold on, what's going on? I go, sir, don't talk. We'll tell you what you need to know. And you go, oh, am I in some sort of trouble? Just don't talk, sir. And the next thing you know, you're just there. And it happens to us. And because we're not criminals and we're not horrible politicians and we didn't do anything wrong, you sort of have a sort of naivete that you go through life. And that's just, oh no, the head of the NCAA said you should take the thing with the picture and then not take the thing. And you go, huh? What that? Well, yeah, here we go. Give him the thing. And next thing you know, you're just sort of riding along on this crazy train. And then what happens is a couple of years go by and normal, sane people sort of sober up and go, what is this? And then it comes back, it takes, it's like, Black Lives Matter, defund the police. What are we doing? We're defunding the police. Oh, we are? Yes. You with us? Yeah, okay. Why not? And then it's like 2 years goes by and we go, what the fuck were we doing? And someone goes, we're just going along with this thing that was a horrible idea that everyone told us to go along with. And that's the snapshot of the last few years, just 3 or 4 or 5 years, COVID, mask in the pool, mask up in between bites, Black Lives Matter, defund the police, Leah Thomas swimming in a pool. That's just normal people being caught off guard and not really having a reaction and going along. And then now we're in the period where everyone kind of comes out of the malaise and goes, what were we doing? That was a horrible idea. We got to change this back. But they initially catch us because we want to get along and we're all caught off guard. So do not blame yourself. The sanctioning bodies, essentially the adults, needed to act like adults. But the problem now is the news organizations jump on the side of crazy. Could be Black Lives Matter, could be masks, all things COVID, vaccines, defund the police. Now you have the entire news organizations, and then people are being doxxed and deplatformed and stuff, and you're like, oh, this must be real. And it works. They work in conjunction. Now, I don't know how these news agencies work, getting so crazy so fast on such insane stories. But they all took the side of the male who was beating the female in the swimming pool, and anyone who raised their hand and said, this seems nuts, was getting shouted down. So that's how it happens. And so you shouldn't blame yourself for that. But I'm curious, what is Leah Thomas's, what's the angle? Is it, I want a trophy and I can't win them from men? Or I have a sexual fetish where I want to expose myself in a locker room and amongst women and not be arrested? All the above? What do you think's going on a psychodynamic level for that person?
Well, I think there's a sheer amount of narcissism.
Oh, yeah.
Look, ultimately, Thomas was following the rules. And so it's the rules that I have a problem with. That's why I'm suing the NCAA. Myself and 15 other athletes, we're suing the NCAA for these rules. So we'll be clear there. But that doesn't mean that I don't think he is a total narcissist, displayed an utter disregard for us as women. He didn't care about how violated we felt in the locker room. He didn't care. That trophy incident? I'm sitting there mouthing off behind. I tell it much more mild, but really I'm looking at the official, Thomas, 3 inches from me, saying this is BS and you know it. You're giving the trophy to the man. Thomas didn't once offer the trophy up. He didn't once say maybe we could both hold the trophy. Not that I even wanted to. That trophy means absolutely nothing to me. I don't even want the trophy at this point. But didn't ever once offer it. He's a total narcissist is what he is, with a sexual fetish at that. What I personally believe. He has posted on social media multiple times now, liking and confirming things, saying that he's just an AGP, which means an autogynephile, which means you're sexually aroused as dressing as a woman, which checks out someone who is truly dysphoric about their bodies. Would not feel comfortable exposing themselves in the way that he did. So
how did the exposure work? I mean, they really just ushered him into the ladies' locker room and said, you guys all just changed in this communal area?
Yeah. The swimming locker room, it's just one big open square. There's maybe 2 stalls, right? But no one changes in a stall. It's just a big open area. We weren't told he would be here, no forewarning, nothing like that. We just had to learn by literally looking at him undress while he got to simultaneously watch us exploit ourselves.
Wow. Some music popped up there. So you literally saw his genitalia?
That's right. Yeah.
Wow. Where are you right now, Riley?
Or lack thereof. So I'm actually in Montana, of all places. I am super cool. I'm doing an event tonight with Tulsi Gabbard. We are on a Take Back Title IX bus tour. Sorry, the music just popped on.
That's all right.
I will get that handled. But it's been, we've gone all across the country. Myself, we've had different people along the way, Betsy DeVos, Martina Navratilova, who is someone that, we don't agree on much else. But again, she has been a wonderful fighter in this fight. And so Montana is a state that we are targeting, given there's a big Senate race here. And they have a senator who does not support women only in women's sports.
Well, okay, this is what it's going to take. People who have a diverse background, who have made their bones in the sport, sort of have some expertise, joining you and other people who may not be like-minded about everything, but are like-minded on this one subject. I feel there's a ethnic version of this. Like, we need more blacks just to go, are you kidding? Stop treating us like kids. We're capable of getting IDs. We can bring our own water to stand in line to vote in Georgia. Like, come on. You need allies, and the allies, guys, old, white, heterosexual guys like me are no good. I mean, it's not bad. I'm not hurting the cause, but you need the J.K. Rowlings and the Martina Navratilovas and the people that go, I'm a woman, I'm a, maybe a progressive woman, lesbian or Democrat or whatever, but I am uniting with you on this cause.
Definitely. And again, I think that's where we're headed. More and more people, they're seeing the harm, they're seeing the severity, they're seeing the trajectory of where we're going, what this means, the denial of the most basic of truths. I think they understand this now as for what it is. There are no limits. There are no limits if we are willing to deny man and woman, something we've never struggled to understand in the nearly 250 years we've been established as a country, but certainly much longer than that. And so I do think we are reaching the point where we are finding and creating those allies, people who will help us push back to highlight, again, the insanity of what we're seeing.
And so what is the solution here then, like that the NCAA should do? Is it open category? Should they just put them all in the men's division? What is, I mean, you've done a lot of research on it.
Definitely. I do not support the idea of a third category. One, it's still pandering to the problem at hand. Sports is, I mean, that's where you go to abandon all identity factors. You don't look at religion when you play sports. You don't look at race. You don't look at sexual orientation. Why would we have a category for gender identity? And if safety and fairness is the argument that we are making for why categories are necessary, you still would very much have men competing against women. So then do you further break it down between men who identify as women in one category and then another category for women who identify as men? Okay, and then do you further break it down between men who began puberty blockers before puberty and men who began puberty blockers after puberty? The finances, finding enough people to play, finding enough people to watch these leagues, I think that's far-fetched. So I think the solution is what has been proposed or what was proposed in 1972. Which is sex-based categories. If you are a female, you compete with the women. If you are a man, you compete with the men. I mean, I think that's just what needs to be done.
To me, the most insidious part of these kinds of stories is the part where the administrator at the college or the coach or the whomever tells whoever's involved with this atrocity, just be quiet, we don't want to get into trouble, just go along with this thing. And I know there's a component of that with your story as well, right, Riley?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, the muzzling, that's what it was, the emotional blackmail, the gaslighting. I mean, it's insane, it really is. They told us we would never get a job, you would lose your friends and your family, you'll never get into grad school, you'll lose your scholarship if you speak out about this. And oh yeah, Riley, speaking of that scholarship, remember you signed that. And when you signed that, you gave away your rights to speak in your own personal capacity. Remember who you represent, whose name is across your chest and across your cap, because it's not yours, it's ours, and understand we have already taken your stance for you. They even went as far. I mean, I had to go to training, sensitivity training. I had to be coached on how to learn she, her pronouns, mandatory LGBTQ education meetings every single week to learn about how just by being cisgender, we were oppressing Leah Thomas. Thomas's teammates, when they sent an email to their administration, to UPenn, expressing their discomfort specifically in the locker room, 16 of the girls signed on to this email. The university responded back with, if you feel uncomfortable seeing male genitalia, here are some counseling resources that you should seek in an attempt to re-educate yourselves. They even went as far to say that we would have blood on our hands if we spoke up. We would be equivalent to murderers because someone like Thomas could potentially self-inflict harm on themselves, and that would make us solely responsible, and that would make us a murderer. And then they would follow up with, and you don't want to be a murderer. Do you know? So I suggest you be kind and I suggest you be inclusive. And believe it or not, that works. It's effective when you're talking to a bunch of 18, 19, 20-year-old girls, telling them that they will have killed somebody if they advocate for fair play and privacy in areas of undressing. I can keep going.
No, I know, but see, this is the Orwellian sort of Soviet Pravda insidious part of the time we're living in. It's not so much the act, whether it's an act of violence or an act like you've experienced. It's not so much the event. It's all the people around those events explaining what you have to do. You know, like all the people during COVID would be like, I know masks don't work and your 2-year-old can't keep it on, but just put it on and don't say anything, you know, or like, you're healthy. You got a 14-year-old son. He doesn't need the vax, but just get him vax so he can get into the Denny's so you guys can have breakfast and not be left alone. You know, it's all those people. Those are the scary ones to me, because the people that actually, you know, the Leah Thomases of the world are thankfully very few and far between. They really are. There's only a handful of those people, but there's tons of CNN reporters, MSNBC reporters, college administrators, coaches, and vice principals. Those are where the numbers are. And those are the ones who really shape the discussion and the dialogue. And those are the ones that have a fiduciary duty to protect people like you and not go along with things. You know what I mean? Like Mark Garagos, he's an attorney. He's never like, well, Scott Peterson's not very popular, so I'm just going to go ahead and throw him under the bus. No. He has to defend Scott Peterson, and then he's going to get attacked. But that's his job. It's a fiduciary duty. He took the job. That's his job. He can't just go along with the crowd. He's the least popular person on the planet because everybody on the planet hated Scott Peterson and thus hated Mark Garagos. But Mark Garagos has to vigorously defend Scott Peterson no matter how bad he looks doing it in the eyes of the ladies of our nation especially. And I feel the same way about the coaches and the principals and the administrators and the NCAA, all the officials. They all had a duty to step up. And forget about the CNN bought and sold, you know, reporters. But the adults in the room had a duty to stand up, and they did not stand up. And they didn't stand up when they were closing all the schools during COVID, and they didn't stand up for you swimming against the male.
No, they didn't. They failed at their most basic duty of ensuring, our privacy, safety opportunities. They failed at that miserably. Every adult in the room, which was a disheartening reality. The same people who I trusted. I trusted with my athletic career, with my success. With everything. They let me down, which was tragic, really. Not because they weren't supportive. I had all of them telling me privately, thank you. You keep going, keep pushing. They didn't agree with this. No way. You really mean to tell me ESPN or the NCAA or the International Olympic Committee don't recognize the difference between men and women? Really? No, of course they do. They're not stupid. Right. As much as we want to believe they are, they're not stupid.
No, they're cowards.
They're cowards, and they're sellouts is what they are.
Yes, they have character issues, and that's where I'd rather have stupid than coward anytime. Let me give the book a plug, Riley. And I think we are going to wrestle this society back in the name of sanity. Not one side of the aisle, the other side of the aisle, just sane versus insane. At this point, we're there. We're done with talking tax codes, capital gains, and test scores for math aptitude. We're now insane versus sane. That's sort of the battle that's being waged now. So I count you amongst the sane, and it's going to take people with a lot of energy and a lot of poise and a lot of conviction and courage to do what you do. It's ironic. They always called the person who wanted to swim with the girls, that person had courage, according to CNN, but it's the people who speak up who have the courage. So thank you, Riley Gaines, for that. Swimming against the current fighting for common sense in a world that's lost its mind. Riley, come give my love to Tulsi and come see us when you're in town.
No doubt. You got it. Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys and the platform that you have and how you continue to highlight the nonsense. So thank you.
Oh, I don't have a choice. That's the way I look at it. Riley, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to be in Vegas on Thursday doing a live pod there with Josh Wolf and Michael Yo, and then a stand-up performance after that that now says 9 o'clock, but I think it's probably 9:30 because I couldn't see it being 9. You can go to adamcarolla.com. Levittown, New York, Governors. That'll be stand-up. That'll be June 28th and 29th, doing 3 shows there. So you can go to adamcarolla.com for that. And until next time, it's Adam Carolla for Riley Gaines and Anthony Michael Hall and Chris Max Mattis saying mahalo.